Okay, ZBA, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals for May 21st, 2024. We have one scheduled public hearing this evening, and that is the applicant is Drew Thompson at 421 East Lake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk tax map number 300-6-2-18. The size and location is 16,468 square feet at 421 East Lake Drive in Montauk. And the description is to demolish the existing residence and construct a new 2,307 square foot residence with 655 square foot of decking, porches, and stoops, a 120 square foot shed, new driveway, sanitary system, and wall within jurisdiction and setbacks of wetlands. The we've sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 3 variances are required for this application. 2 variances of 26.2 feet, 13.8 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code to allow the decking to be constructed 73.8 feet, a residence 86.2 feet, respectively from wetlands where the 100-foot setbacks are required. 1 variance of 69 feet from 255-375 of the Town Code is required to construct a new sanitary system 131 feet from wetlands where a 200-foot setback is required and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is A residence, AE flood zones, elevation 5, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
I've reviewed the affidavits of notice and posting. Everything appears to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this application.
Thank you. Who's doing the report?
This is mine.
Okay, Ed, go for it.
Thank you. We have some photos tonight that were done earlier, so they won't reflect this spring vegetation, but this is the photo of the new posting. I took this 2 days ago. Next. We're looking down the adjacent driveway. It's another, I had an application on this residence just recently that's adjacent to the Thompson driveway. Next. Now here I am, I'm looking, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm looking south here, down East Lake Drive. Next. Now I'm looking north down East Lake Drive. Next. This is directly across from the airport. Here's a shot of the parking lot. And the next one will show you a shot of the building that serves as the terminal here for the Montauk Airport. Next. This is the driveway up the flag lot driveway that goes into the parcel in discussion tonight. Next. This is the house as it exists now. We've got a description of it in the TAM. Next. This is a shed that's been mentioned earlier. It's been agreed to be moved, so it's no longer requiring a variance, but the best reference is this is the shed that's going to be moved. Next. Now I've come around, you see the deck on the rear of the house, or the lake side of the house, the water side of the house. Next. I'm sorry, now I'm behind it. My back is to the water. I'm looking back at the house. You get an idea. It's not a large residence. You see how it sits and you see the deck configuration. Next. There's a hot tub that's been removed from the application, so it's not necessary for us to consider. Next. Now I'm taking a look. This is a lot directly to the southwest. There's a house directly to the southwest. It's the adjoining flag lot. We just saw the driveway to it in one of the earlier photos. Next. Now I'm looking down towards the lake. You see the lake in the distance. This is their right of way. It'll open up in a minute, I think, in the next shot. Next. Now you can see a mowed area. I see a survey stake to my left there along the vegetation. Give you an idea about what it is and what it looks like as we head down to the lake. Next. Now when I'm down here, I mentioned this comment below. It's an old photo, but it gives you an idea at high tide. It obviously floods inside of the shoreline. And at this point here, it was high tide and we did see some standing water. Next. This is a look to the north. To the north, the adjacent lot is a residential lot, but beyond that is a marina. And you can see just how close they are to that. Next. Now I've taken a look in the other direction. I'm looking south and you get a sweep of the lake. This is fairly far north on East Lake Drive when you get down by the airport, but not too far now from Gin Beach. And so you get a great long sweep of what the vegetation looked like and what the shoreline looks like. Next. Now Now, I've turned my back right there. I'm standing my back to the water, and I'm looking back up. The neighbor's house is the one closest to us on the right, and the applicant's house is straight ahead. Next. I'll come a little further, and I think last time I wanted to just notate that there was strong vegetation here to the north side of the right-of-way that belongs to this particular applicant. Next. There's a little shed on the north side of the house just to show that the house comes around fairly close to vegetation that protects it from the neighbor. Next. This is a neighbor's house that is directly to the north. I'm standing in what you can see a grassy area right adjacent to their house, and you can see this is a fairly good-sized home, but it's the one closest, other than that flag lot, closest to the house under discussion. I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And I got to make a remark. That beach plum bloom at this time of year is just spectacular.
Beautiful. Magical.
Yeah, really spectacular. Andy?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Andy Hammer. I'm here tonight representing Drew and Stephanie Thompson. I appreciate the board's consideration of this rehearing request. As I'll discuss briefly, my clients Drew and Stephanie, I was hoping they were going to have their daughter Remy, who's 18 months old, here to answer any questions you might have, but they are here at least and can answer them if you can. I think Ed's field inspection was helpful. You know, I'm pretty intimately familiar with this location. I've had my boat at the adjacent marina for several decades, unfortunately. Now that just means I'm getting old. It's sort of a strange area. It's, you know, Rick's Krabby Cowboy is directly next door. That had a long history of the town when I worked as a town attorney. Not all of it was great at the end of the day. As you may know, the restaurant tragically burned down last year, right around this time of year, as I recall. And what remains in use there, I think, are the motel units. I want to say there's about 20 of them if you count the exteriors, but I do believe those 20 motel units are seasonally rented. Airports across the street. My marina also has a restaurant and a fairly significant slip count. I want to say it's about 110 or 120 boats. It's one of the larger marinas on the East Lake side. Most of the commercial properties adjacent are entirely cleared of natural vegetation and been maintained that way for decades. This site is far from a pristine oasis. It's surrounded and impacted by these adjacent pre-existing commercial operations. To my knowledge, the only site that utilizes or is benefited by an IA sanitary system right now is my marina. I know they put that in last year at Montauk Anglers Club, formerly Gone Fishing. But the motel units and restaurant haven't had any septic improvements. As a matter of fact, I think there's pending applications to put resort units at the Rick's Krabby Cowboy. I don't know the status of that. As I mentioned, this property was the subject of a hearing held in October last year. I was happy Drew and Stephanie called me to help after their hearing. I live next door to Stephanie's mother, Maureen, and her father, John Kingston. Maureen is actually a Devlin, which is an old family in Montauk, a very well-known family. Stephanie grew up in Montauk, worked at my local vet's office for many years, lives in Montauk with Drew and their daughter, and they also have another child on the way in this tiny house on East Lake Drive. My wife works with Stephanie's mother at Little Flower Catholic School in Montauk. It's sort of the preschool that my kids attended, and it's sort of a rite of passage in Montauk. Basically, these folks are part of the fabric of Montauk that is being tattered and torn by our real estate market conditions. They're not speculators, developers, or seasonal renters, and they have no intention of renting this house. That does matter to me, and I think it should matter to this board. It's a valid consideration of the standards the board will apply as part of our variance request. The existing house was built in the early 1960s. I think the first record of the CO was 1962. There's nothing redeeming about the existing residence or its construction means other than it is their home. This isn't a tear down and build a monster house to market in the next year situation. This is their home and will remain their home. I'm sure Drew and Stephanie's first choice would be to buy an existing house that fits their budget. That's frankly not possible right now. I'm consistently shocked at real estate pricing in Montauk, or town-wide for that matter. Everyone is being priced out who's a local out here. So as we say in the offshore fishing world, you slung what you brung. They own this house and they love the area. So their best option is to propose a modest house to make the best application they can for your consideration. At the prior hearing, the board seemed to have the majority of the board in favor of the submitted and amended plans. As you remember, there was a prior application that was, I think, 2,600 square feet. It was reduced down to 2,300 and change. But unfortunately, Joan McGivern, for reasons I don't know, didn't attend or vote on the last 3 zoning board members' meetings, to my recollection, in December. So the application, when it was brought to a vote, was essentially denied by a 2-2 vote of the board at the December meeting. Joan never appeared. That's basically a denial. You can't tie to win. We're not playing baseball, basically. So it can't be approved in a tie vote. Rather than challenge this and ultimately come back before you, which is probably the way this would have gone, my recommendation to Drew and Stephanie was to solely to listen to the board's deliberations and your discussion when you decided this, as well as the hearing, which we did, and try to revise the application to achieve the best possible result, and request a rehearing by a full board, which is why we are here tonight, and thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully, this will allow for a speedier consideration of our application, which we believe we improved on in every aspect of the proposed application. We made several notable changes to the application based on the prior board discussions that I wanted to just briefly touch on. The revised architectural and floor plans prepared by Victor Cuneo, dated March 4th, 2024. I also included on Friday a graphic that I had Victor draw to accompany these that I submitted last week. It basically shows the reduction in both the massing, which was accomplished by reducing and eliminating a portion of the roof line. That was my idea, for the record, when I looked at it, as well as the reduction in footprint and accessory structures proposed on the residence, shown in the gray outline. We made changes to the plans consistent with the board's discussions that dramatically reduced the structure in several dimensional as well as floor plans showing the reduction in gross floor area. As revised, now the house is 2,307 square feet or something. We also submitted the revised survey by George Walbridge. The survey depicts the increase in setbacks. We're not talking about acres of setbacks here. This is a property that was being developed in accordance with both the need to comply with pyramid as well as the lot area on the survey, but our decrease in proposed clearing, reduction in the decks, and the overall metrics of the application, including total lot clearing, or total lot coverage and lot coverage. We also submitted a revised revegetation plan from Jim Grimes showing that we have proposed more revegetation along the south side of the property. We reduced clearing by an additional 1,000 square feet. I do think it would be possible to expand these planted areas if the board deemed it necessary, but I'm reluctant to tell a family of what's about to be 4 with 2 young children. They can't have more than a postage stamp area outside to enjoy. But if you did deem it necessary, we could further sharpen our pencils. In sum, we reduced another 365 square feet of gross floor area, reduced lot coverage by 155 square feet, and 366 square feet in total lot coverage, all from the plans that were already reduced based on the board's prior hearing. I was sort of disappointed in the memo that Tyler prepared. He seems to dismiss these important changes to the project, particularly because 2 of the existing board members that are here tonight voted to approve the larger application. I just don't think Tyler is giving, at the time, 50% of the board who voted for this application, as well as my client, any voice in this. I can tell you the changes to these house plans, which are modest by any standard at 2,300 square feet without a basement, for the record, are not easily accomplished and were not without cost and impact to the Thompson family or their expectation. I was also dismayed to see a recommendation of the planning department that actually recommends a 2,000 square foot house on this property as being more appropriate. The number is completely unsupported in the record. I would challenge the board or the planning department to quantify, or more importantly, demonstrate on the record, the difference of 300 square feet when it is being used by the same family unit. Would this 300 square foot encourage more family gatherings that would somehow be more impactful to the site or to the adjacent wetlands? It's possible Drew has an uncle who really hates wetlands, but he won't show up to a house if it's smaller than 2,100 square feet. I just think that's very unlikely. Such hair splitting is frankly unsupported by the record and unlikely to be upheld upon judicial review without a clear basis of distinction that is neither arbitrary nor capricious. I think it is both at present. It is an arbitrary marker based on a psychological consideration, not in fact. A reduction in size would not reduce the bedroom count, reduce in any appreciable change to the setbacks to the wetlands, clearing, or any other metric that the board expressed as a consideration during their first deliberations. The end use of this house, as it sits today with its current outdated sanitary system, 1962 construction, and the environmental conditions that are there today, or the proposed house, is set in stone. Right there. Those are the clients. They're going to be there with their 2 kids. Is denying this application that I think has met the standards of the town code a way of forcing them to sell the house and move? I just don't think it is reasonable to assume that they would remain in East Hampton, or maybe they could rent one of the motel units or several of them next door. Without a true nexus, I just don't see how reducing this by 300 square feet solves anything other than forcing them to reconsider their future and incur additional costs. Keep in mind, 70 square feet of that 300 square feet under our town code is a staircase. It has no gross floor area outside of this calculation under the town code. In this case, a local family really listened to the board and accommodated your stated concerns, modified their plans and expectations, and improved their application by every single stated metric, all at great cost to them. They listen and are trying to provide for their family and the environment, and I believe this proposal strikes the correct balance wherein the environmental improvements they can bring to this property are not offset by any identified detriment to the property. The sanitary is in the best possible location for an AI sanitary system. The house has been designed to maximize setbacks and reduce clearing in a manner consistent with our town code. I believe this current proposal qualifies for the grant of the requested NRSP and the grant of the requested variance, and will provide both the improvement of environmental conditions on the property and be consistent with the character of the community. Perhaps this is a small improvement in the immediate area, but if the adjacent residences, some of which are much closer to the lake, and the commercial uses next door were held to the same exacting standards, the planning department would acknowledge the overall benefits of this application are a step forward in this area. I'm available for any questions. And so
Anybody have any
clients.
questions?
Well, yeah, you say that you're reducing it by 365 square feet. That's from the first application. What's the GFA on the house today?
It's actually over, I think it's 600 square feet from the first. The prior application was 2,660.
672.
Yeah, so now we're down to 2,307.
300 something. Yeah, so it's about 365. But the house today is 888 GFA square feet, right?
It might even be smaller than that. I think it's 720 square feet. I think what's interesting here is that these 3 houses at one time, I don't know, they must have been fishermen's cottages back in the day. Clearly, the one on the front side has been redeveloped as one of the 3. These 2 remaining cottages are the only 2 remaining. I don't consider this a small lot by my calculations or by my experience in Montauk, nor do I consider a 720 square foot house a reasonable residential use when you account for the fact that we're going to be able to reduce clearing, a sanitary system in there, and otherwise comply with all available metrics that we show in our application.
How much is the clearing going down?
Between the 2 proposals, I think our total proposed clearing somewhere in the neighborhood of 80. I think Tyler actually has it down with 6,800 square feet. Originally, we were proposing 7,880. So we reduced clearing by another 1,000 square feet.
And I'm just confirming these numbers. So the clearing relative to the existing goes up by almost 1,000 in construction, and then it comes back down post.
That's correct. Largely, that would be associated with the installation of an IA sanitary system, which requires a thinner, a more expansive leaching pool to, comply with groundwater elevations. So it's more disturbance to the site, but we are revegetating all those areas.
Right. And can I just ask one quick one? Or Denise, were you going to ask something? I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
Just very quickly, because I was not on the board last year, and I went back and I watched and everything. But I was just still trying to reconcile when just the interim 2409 came up. Right, you were originally, the application that was heard was 267037,
That's
right?
correct.
And then it went to 2409, and now we're at 2307. Could you just remind me, I tried to piece together, when did the 2409
I think the
happen?
2409 at the October 17th hearing was kept open for them to resubmit a revised plan. That was submitted sometime in November.
Right.
It was ultimately voted on by the board at the second meeting in December. Just, I was not involved in that application, just,
Right.
to be frank. So I kind of share your concern, but I did watch those deliberations after the fact. But I believe it was submitted after the October meeting by November 19th or something was the date it was held open
I
to.
can answer. I think it was on December 3rd that
Yeah.
Mr. Thompson submitted
Right.
the updated one with the reductions in it.
But that was, I'm sorry, before you made your
It
decision.
was before, right, that number was in place when we made the
It was clearly
decision.
considered
Yeah.
by the board when they actually heard it. And, kudos to Mr. Thompson. This is a complex land use application and, thought he could handle it himself. And he did. He did an admirable job. And I'm just happy to be able to step in and help him.
Yep.
Hopefully push it over the finish line.
Any other questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Tyler?
Tyler Borsak for the Planning Department.
Tyler, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So this parcel is on a flag lot on the south side of East Lake Drive, across the street from the airport in Montauk. The application was the subject of a ZBA hearing, which was then held open in order to provide updated plans, as was discussed, and is now reopened again for a new hearing with a full 5-member board. The applicant submitted several documents, including an updated survey, building plans, and a revegetation plan in anticipation of a new hearing. The updated information includes further reductions in the GFA of the proposed residence from the original proposal, which was 2672, which was then reduced after that hearing to 2409, and is now proposed to be 2307. The applicant has also reduced decking from 1,260 square feet to 1,075 square feet, which is now proposed to be 655 square feet of first and second story decking. And some of that is within the footprint of decking above or below. Finally, the applicant has reduced the footprint of the residence further from a previously proposed 1,420 square feet to 1,363 square feet, where 888 square feet is the current existing conditions on the property. Clearing on the property will be further reduced an additional 1,000 square feet to 6,803 square feet after construction is complete. At the original hearing, the planning department had concerns over the scale of the improvements, expanding the footprint and adding a full second story. At that time, the residence was proposed to be increased by approximately 3 times the size of the existing residence, with only a 10-foot increase in setbacks. The newly submitted plans still represent a significant increase in the size of the residence on a small constrained property. The proposed residence contains a 131 square foot first floor with a similar 1,176 square foot second floor. The residence was designed in order to meet pyramid regulations on this constrained property. Ultimately, the proposed residence does not represent a significant change from what was presented to the ZBA at the public hearing and in the second submission after the hearing. The numbers were already discussed, but 365 square feet was removed from the gross floor area, 155 square feet from lot coverage, and 366 square feet was removed from total lot coverage in these updated plans. The newly designed residence has also been shifted more landward to increase setbacks to wetlands. With minimal reductions in the proposed residence, the project still represents a fairly significant increase in the intensity of use on a non-conforming constrained property with flooding concerns. The increases in setbacks are a push in the right direction, but the size of the residence is still a significant change. The planning department still recommends that the property would be more appropriate for a smaller residence with a reduced footprint and reduced gross floor area. At a 2,307 square foot residence located 86 feet from wetlands with a sanitary system located 131 feet from wetlands with a minimal buffer is likely not appropriate for the constraints of the parcel and represents a significant departure from the existing improvements. Possibly reducing the footprint of the residence closer to 1,000 square feet, and as a result, reducing the gross floor area to approximately 2,000 square feet would be more appropriate for the constraints of the lot, be more in keeping with the existing improvements, and with reduced impacts on the surrounding wetlands. And other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
I'm wondering, because I don't have the full set of house drawings here, can you remind me what the basement is to? What is the?
I don't remember. I can pull up the
There's no
plan.
basement.
No basement, right?
There is no, but I don't think there is.
No, not
no
basement,
there is no
what is the foundation? We're going to be on pilings? We're going to be on?
No, there's, what's the,
There is showing of a foundation there.
I have that same drawing. I didn't think it looked like that.
you're in an AE flood zone.
Yeah, everything on the,
Pilings
in the harbor itself would be AE.
Okay. But there is no plan for pilings here then?
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. I'm just asking if you know. Okay, thank you.
Tyler, can you put back up, I know I looked at it in the file, but can you put, or maybe it actually, oh, it does show it on there, I'm sorry. The height and the pyramid lines, I'm just having a hard time seeing it. I just wanted to refresh
Yep.
where the house comes out now. I know it's within that, it doesn't pierce, but I just wanted to. I'm just trying to focus on, I can't see it
Okay.
from here, sorry.
Sorry, the AC's running. It's over
Just,
here.
you're close to the line, but you're
Yeah, they are conforming. Yes.
at
Yeah.
it, right?
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a motion?
Yeah, public? Do you have to check the public?
Oh,
online?
is there anybody in the public? Matt, anybody online?
You have 0 calls holding. Thank you.
Good. Now we can make a motion. Make a motion?
Oh, it's me, the motion. I'm sorry. I'm waiting for someone else. I'm sorry. Hold on, let me get it here. Then in the case of Drew Thompson of 421 East Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-6-2-
Oh, yeah, sure. Come on up, man.
Thank you. I didn't want the record to close. Two things. That was a good point about the foundation. I was unaware that there was not a piling plan. This will have to be on pilings or piers. One good thing about piling and pier construction is it minimizes disturbance to the site. You don't have to excavate down to great distances. It can be put in using, much. I'm sure Roy knows better than anybody how they can put these things in without and limit their disturbance. So there's not going to be a ton of excavation. The other thing I want to correct myself is I think the decision was rendered in January, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, that it was.
January 17th.
It just wasn't decided on when Joan McGivern was part of the board. And I don't think Jane was actually even appointed or maybe recused
was-
herself. I think you had
was-
recused yourself at that
I didn't
point.
recuse myself, but, I was so new to the board.
Yeah, you hadn't been there
That in
for
the
hearing.
beginning, I wasn't participating in the post-hearing decisions from the prior year, so I did not,
So I was just clarifying my own confusion there, but I do remember it occurring in January now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then in the application of Drew Thompson, 421 East Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-6-2-18, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing and the record at this time.
Second. Concur.
concur.
Concur. Thank you. All right, we have some post-hearing decisions. We have Ellen Fine at 3 Miller Avenue, Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-32-7-34. Size and location is 18,530 square feet at 3 Miller Avenue, map of Seaside Shores, number 1518, block 603, lot 13 in Montauk. The description is to demolish an existing one-story residence and construct a new 1,557 square foot, 1- and 2-story residence with 522 square foot of first floor decking, 864 square foot of roof decking, a sanitary system, new driveway, and hot tub on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, and variances from 255-430, minimum wetland setbacks, 255-1110, dimensional regulations, 255-1172D of the town code. The following 11 variances are required on this application. Variances of 72 feet, 75.1 feet are required to construct a residence and decking 28 feet, 24.9 feet respectively from wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. A 130.2 foot variance is required to install the sanitary system, 19.8 feet from wetlands where a 150-foot setback is required. 54.3 foot variance is required to install the hot tub, 45.7 feet from wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. And approximately 47-foot variance is required to allow clearing for a new parking area to occur 3 feet from wetlands where a 50-foot setback is required. Variances of 4 feet are required to allow the residence and decking on the north side of the house to be constructed 4 feet from the east and western side yard lot lines where an 8-foot reduced side yard setback is required. Variances of 15.9 feet are required to allow the deck on the south side of the residence to be located 4.1 feet from both side yards where a 20-foot setback is required, and variances are required to allow the residence to extend 10.25 feet and 14.5 feet beyond the relative height pyramid limit from the eastern and western lot lines respectively. The zoning district is B residence, AE flood zone, elevation 16 feet, 15 feet, and X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And this was yours?
This was mine.
Yep, go for it. For the record, I was not here this evening, but I did review the files and they're.
Okay, we'll start off. The hearing date was February 27th of 2024. The agent for this was Tarbett and Lester. The survey that we had at the time of the, prior to the hearing was 9/25/23, which we actually received on February 22nd. I think I have 2027, but it would have been 2024. Subsequent to the hearing, we did get the additional documentation that you'll hear that we had requested at the hearing that was received and dated on February. I'm sorry, let me take that back. The follow-up documents we received on the night of the hearing, some of the follow-up documents on the night of the hearing. We also had a site plan from 1/23/23 from David Saskis and pyramid elevation diagram by an unknown company dated 3/10/22. Over the course of at the time of the hearing, actually, it happened the night of the hearing, with those submissions that we received on February 27th, one of the variances was eliminated for the parking, the clearing for the parking in the area. They had removed that from the application and the survey. All the rest of them still exist. The night of the hearing, there was very long discussions about the culvert and the water and the runoff on this property and its impact to the neighborhood. This is a neighborhood that was created, basically, it's not technically part of Ditch Plains, but Seaview Avenue and Miller Avenue in a subdivision that have this high concentration of water and runoff and this culvert system. Some of the water, this culvert runs right through this applicant's property and runs some of it to the south to the retention pond and other toward the east. It also ends up traveling through the Ditch Plains area and into South Lake of Lake Montauk, South Lake Beach, which does have its issues environmentally, as we all know. Anyway, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of good discussion going on about the culvert. There were two neighbors that came in to testify about the water and runoff and provided some photos. And ultimately, as part of that discussion, we requested several items from the agent to be provided to us, which we did receive. And I messed up that date. On March 12th of 2024, we received a packet from Tarbert and Lester going into the culvert. The test hole, the additional test hole data, which is one of the additional things we had asked for. The new survey, culvert, they've offered a culvert replacement plan. I'm not sure I saw anything that indicated the culvert wasn't functioning properly, but, you know, they have offered to replace it. And other exhibits about the construction protocol, which looks pretty good, but I am going to leave, I'm actually looking for more information on that from our experts on this board that are more expert about this than I. As far as the other dimensional variances, I do have an issue with the pyramid, and particularly on the west side, and with the setbacks on the west side. For this house had actually increased the setback on the western side of the existing house from 2 feet 6 inches to 4 feet 1 inch on the west side. Basically what they did was they decreased the setback on the eastern side of the existing house and increased it by a little more than a foot on the west side. My problem with this is that the next door neighbor, the neighbor on the eastern side is set off on a larger lot that is also set back far, relatively far away from this house. On the west side, however, the next door, the nearest neighbor is very close. I believe that house is got 9.6 feet from the applicant's house on the west side. So the 4.1 feet, this house also benefits from a 4/5 rule because of the 50-foot width of the lot, which is substandard. So they need an 8-foot setback. This one is 4.1 actually on both sides, west and east, but my problem with this one, and some of it fills into a document that Brian Frank had written up after we had the hearing, and he did have a concern, or perhaps it was in the TAM actually, that the 4.1 on the east and the west side setback for the house and the line of clearing, the existing line of clearing might not be sufficient for this house. It's 4.1 feet on the western side. That's the one that disturbs me in particular. And I know in all our hearings, when we have a setback request variance, one of the things we look for is what kind of screening that applicant can provide and how close the neighbors are. And in this case, this neighbor is very close, and any screening that is there, I don't know how they would put up screening when it's 4.1 feet. And the clearing line might be in there, but again, then the access around the house and to do things and coming in back, from north to south on the house. So that in particular, that and the pyramid, and as I think Brian Frank did suggest at the hearing, was that an 8-foot, if they met the 8-foot setback, and it would also help and reduce the pyramid that will be coming in play for a new house. So those are possibilities, I guess. I'm struggling with this application. We know environmentally it's an incredibly sensitive one. I have a lot of concerns about that runoff. I'm going to say right now, my thoughts are that the submissions that they made will handle a lot of the environmental concerns, but then on the variance and the dimensional level, I still have an issue with that setback particularly on the west side. and the pyramid. I think both of those could be improved upon. So I'm, at this point, looking to deny the application, but before I make that final decision, I would like to hear on the environmental and not the architectural, but the engineering things that were submitted by the applicants.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, thank you. So Miller Avenue, rather, fine. The proposed project is situated on an 18,530 square foot parcel, 50 foot wide and 400 foot deep. With wetlands immediately to the north and south, 36% of the parcel is in wetlands. The approximately 1,200 square foot existing residence was constructed in 1956 with additions that followed in 68 and 75. The parcel contains moving water to the west of the existing driveway, and that water crosses from west to east by means of a buried culvert that was the subject of discussion by the board during the public hearing. The water leaving the culvert exits the parcel and is deposited on the property to the east before making its way to pools of standing water that exist both on private property and in Rhinestone Park, a town-owned parcel to the south. Because of the dynamic nature of the waterway, the replacement of the long-term maintenance of the existing culvert was deemed to be of importance in protecting the properties to either side of 3 Miller Place. The applicant did respond to the board's request to address this issue. The proposed project seeks to replace the dilapidated 1,200 square foot structure with a 1,544 square foot residence that would sit on the approximate footprint of the older residence. The new residence, if approved, would be FEMA compliant with first floor elevation to be set at 18 feet above sea level. The new pyramid height encroachment would increase by 6 inches to the west and be reduced by 3 inches to the east. The foundation is planned to be set on concrete footings with the possibility of helical piles being added if they would prove necessary. A shed to the north of the residence is to be removed, and a previously proposed parking area is no longer part of this application. Concern was raised at the public hearing over several on-site conditions. The planning department questioned the accuracy of the test holes that had been done, wondering whether the reported 8.6 groundwater elevation, 1.4 feet below grade, was a viable number. Responding to this, the applicant engaged Chris DeRita of Suffolk County Soil Evaluation to dig new test hole, and the new data suggests that groundwater was encountered approximately 6 feet below grade, 4.6 feet lower than the first test hole found groundwater. The planning department, in response, continues to express surprise at the data. In the March 11th, 2024 memo and drawings from D.B. Bennett Consulting Engineer, Mr. Bennett outlines a building protocol designed to protect the seaward side of the property. He describes and explains the proposed sanitary system, and he provides an accompanying drawing of the location and description of the culvert replacement to be done in the same place and at the same elevation as the existing culvert. The applicant has offered to establish a conservation easement to cover all land south of the 12-foot contour, approximately 6,000 square feet of space. All of the variance requests are significant here, but the existing structure would have required most of the same relief. On a 50-foot wide lot, there's virtually nothing that can be built when adhering to FEMA guidelines that would not require sideline and pyramid variance relief. The proposed 3-bedroom house at 1,557 square feet is not excessively large in my mind, both relative to the parcel size, 18,530, or when placed within the neighborhood. The design seems to maximize the space within the residence while not aggressively extending the footprint of the existing structure. The lot is constricted by wetlands and undersized in width, and would be a challenge to construct any residence here that would not face most, if not all, of the same legal obstacles that this one faces. It's not within our power to prohibit construction on this site, but it is within our power to approve a reasonable and sensible residence if one is proposed. I share the planning department's concern about the groundwater elevation, and I realize that we are being asked to approve a large number of significant variances, but I think that the site will benefit from the new FEMA-compliant structure placed on the existing footprint of the previous residence with an OWTSIA sanitary system with gutters and leaders to collect and distribute rainwater, and a new fully functioning culvert to direct surface water to the nearby surface ponds and to the town-owned collecting pond. Any project here would raise concerns, and this one has, but I don't think that this one will cause any more flooding or disturbance in the surrounding neighborhood than already exists, and that it may actually help to keep the surface waters moving effectively and then directly away from the road. I did not pull out to cite the code, but let me see where that is. We could run through that, but I will say that without doing it, that I found that it did rise to the standards that we're looking for an NRPS. I don't think that we're going to encourage significant environmental damage. I understand the concerns of my fellow board member about the willing to approve this application at this time.
Thank you. Denise?
Okay. Well, this is a flood-prone area in an area in a very constrained lot. As already stated, 36% of this property is part of a very extensive wetland system. This residence is also proposed within an AE16 flood zone. If approved, we would literally be increasing the nonconformity. The culvert water runoff is having an impact already on the neighborhood, and much of the water in the area flows north through wetlands and streams into ditch plains and discharges into the southern end of Lake Montauk. And Lake Montauk, as we all know, is already closed to shell fishing and bathing because of an elevated level of coliform bacteria. This lot is constricted in a very major way by wetlands. So when you're asking for a natural resource special permit, I think you have to we already know that Lake Montauk is impacted by probably all the conditions I just talked about that exist on this lot. From my perspective, and it's just my opinion, I don't feel this meets the standard for a natural resource special permit, and I don't think there was enough thought given to alternatives to better address these issues. Because of yes, we can say someone has the right to build, and I certainly agree with that. On every application that comes before us, people have the right to build. But when 36% of the property is constrained by wetlands, consideration has to be given into, extensive variances that have to be asked for, substantial. And again, I just feel that this does not meet the standards for meeting natural resource special permit standards, so I am denying this application.
Okay. We know, quote, from the planning department, this is, quote, a uniquely constrained property, quote, part of the most active watershed in the entire town, quote, a very, very high degree of hydraulic activity in the town. We've heard about the water flowing in many directions. We've seen the standing water. Our CART plan tells us we also have to think forward as conditions continue to change, as groundwaters continue to rise. So that is completely, context of which I'm evaluating this application. But I also do understand that even with all that, it is a buildable lot. So I'm very seriously looking, of course, how this meets the standards And this is a property where, of course, this is the type of property that you look at that, sort of screams need for relief. I just want to clarify one thing before I go forward. Obviously, in the public hearing, we had a lot of discussion, a fair amount of discussion about they, turned the full basement into a crawl with a slab. A number of us asked if a house on pilings would be. Forgive me, I'm not as technical on this, but when I read the house foundation part of the construction protocol that was delivered to us, when I'm reading it, it sounds like there is perhaps no more basement crawl or slab, and it is all on pilings.
No,
No?
I think if you read the protocol, he says that where necessary and if called for, they'll add helical piles to stabilize that, depending on the conditions they run into in excavation. That's how DB.
Right. So that for me, I think we talked a lot about being on pilings, and the fact that that path wasn't chosen. We talked to Brian Frank about it. He felt that would be a better outcome on this property. So that's one of the things that works a bit against my wanting to, or my believing that this meets all the standards, because that is one of the quote alternative designs per the standard that could have been addressed. The other thing is, and let me just tick off, I'm going to deny the variances for the deck with the, the hot tub on it. I think they're very material variances, and the applicant did not create a reason why this is a real need for relief as opposed to a good to have or nice to have. I guess I'm also, to me, there's a lot of risk, it seems, through the construction. Will that water that's held down by the clay be released? They're going to change the culvert. Obviously we have protocols that are pretty detailed. So I don't know if there's more that can be done to really ensure that the risks that are, fairly palpable, and we also we have an extra test hole, but we didn't have that sort of ongoing monitoring of groundwater levels. So I don't know if there's more that can be done. And then lastly, before I get to kind of final decision, I'm a little less concerned about, I do think the setbacks are pretty similar to what was there. And I don't know how much more they can be internally that can be changed. We did ask about alternate designs, perhaps making the house longer, and reduce the width. Obviously, that would, I think, increase some wetland setbacks, so there's trade-offs. The one thing I would say, though, is, where the pyramid is pierced, I know that glass railings are exempt, but what concerns me is that because it's a side-to-side above, roof deck where there'll be a lot of activity, I don't know if I can make this a requirement, but I would like to see the side railings on the roof deck come in actually to meet the full setbacks, because that would kind of take some of that external activity further away from the house. So all in, I am struggling with this one too. No, I don't want to redesign it. We asked him about redesign, it didn't happen. And this is the application that's before us, except, what I said on the roof deck, I don't consider that a redesign. So we have enough. I would approve the application if there are enough conditions, even more on ensuring that sort of things go well on the property, and And if that adjustment could be made on the sides of the roof deck, denying the variances for that deck and the hot tub.
Thank you. Off the bat, I'm a little bit troubled by the conversation of the piles.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is, let's put yourself in the position of the design professional that's designing this project. The design professional has a lot of experience, many years of experience with respect to design thing. What is he looking at? He's looking at the code. The code says in a AE, no pilings are required. And the code says any foundation has to be 2 feet above groundwater. He meets those. To me, there is no other alternative that we should try to speculate or that could be a feasible alternative to that. He meets the code, and that's bottom line. So that's why I'm somewhat troubled by us supplanting we don't have enough experience on this board to say we have code. That's the code, and I'm perfectly satisfied with that. I'm in agreement with approving this application. I think it does meet the NRSP standards. I think it does meet 255-111 where there is an orderly growth. I think the owner said, the applicant right off from the get-go said they're doing everything they can to make this a better property. And I think they have met those. The variances are basically exist that are there. And I think they've really done their job. The protocol, I think it was well thought out. Again, it's from Drew Bennett, who I thought was pretty thorough in.
I think he addressed the questions we raised, and that's important.
So anyway, I feel that the applicant in this case, this is a very, very sensitive property. The wetlands are very sensitive. This property will get redeveloped. It will be. What's the best redevelopment for it? I don't think they're taking it to an extreme. I think they've been restrained in what they're doing.
Well, I think, okay. Well, in the TAM, as I mentioned, Brian talked about, the 4.1 side yard setback, and he says an 8-foot would eliminate 2 of the 11 variances, reduce the magnitude of the pyramid, and increase the wetland setback to the northeast. Additionally, as far as Jane's concerned for the railing, because I don't think we can say anything about the railing if this application's approved. If the setback was 8 feet, then the railing would be farther over because it would be on the house. But anyway, I don't know. And to the point in the TAM, just bringing this up, if it's going to be approved, the existing limits of clearing, and we know that we hear all the time, 4 feet to get around the house. So we can't condition screening on this, and this is what's bothersome to me.
But the pyramid, to me, the pyramids aren't changing drastically. And
They're not changing
and they exist for a long, long time.
They do.
So I think that's the nexus for us saying you don't need screening too.
Except that, no, but except you're adding all this part of house on this side and this side. Right now,
That's what they were.
yeah, they're adding to the house and squaring and, centering.
Squaring it off.
Yeah, I get it, but
I don't know. When I think about it and I kind of picture it,
For me, on an 18,000 square foot lot, even though 36% of it is wetlands, asking for a 1,500 plus square foot house was a reasonable initial request. And then I think when you start talking about coming back in for side yard setbacks, it was brought up by Member Mearing that if you change the configuration of the house, you might be asking a different problem. We're closer to a wetland, we're closer to a waterway. So I thought, my looking at it, that there was a reasonable approach to try to find a way to get an habitable residence worth their investment on that property. I will say, visiting the site, as I know you did, water is a major issue there as any site I've ever been on. Water is
I know, I agree with that. We all
That's
agree on
one of
that.
the
Yeah, we know
reasons
that.
very critical.
I voted against it. Right, exactly.
It's just those setbacks, and if they can't get around, we're approving, it only needs 8 feet,
Yeah.
because they already have the reduced jurisdiction on it. So that is bothersome to me. And
What-
Where does that leave
The
us?
one thing that we didn't discuss is, I'm sorry.
No, I'm listening.
Okay, is, in some applications on sensitive lots, we've talked about intensity changes or increase in intensity of use. And I actually wasn't really clear. At one point during the hearing, I believe this new house, I think it was new house, was referred to as a 2-bedroom house. All the surveys up until this one that we have in our hand in the public file talked about it as a 4-bedroom house. And the plans show it as a 3-bedroom house. And I don't know what the existing house was. And I bring this up because we have looked at this issue of intensity of use as defined by bedrooms before. I mean, I believe what the applicant says, that the difference between the 1,200 square feet current house and the basically 1,500 plus is that top mechanical bulkhead. So there's no more. The living space is the same, but I couldn't really.
I believe the 4-bedroom reference was really a reference to putting in a septic system, which is a minimum 4-bedroom. If you look at the plan, it's 2 bedrooms and a den. I described it
Yes,
in my statement as a 3-bedroom house because I consider the den to be the other bedroom.
Yeah, I do
So
too. Yeah.
that's what the plan shows
wait,
us.
what plan are you talking about? Because I saw 3 bedrooms. Is that the plan?
Well, it says
Today's-
den/guest room.
But today's health department standards used to be number of bedrooms. Today's standards, they sometimes count other rooms as part of the septic design. It's been changed. So that, again, I don't think this design, in my opinion, doesn't imply an
Yeah.
increase in intensity. I think this is still reasonable.
Just for the board's knowledge, because it's helpful to know.
What?
Just for the board's knowledge, because it's helpful to know, is that Suffolk County, they give you certain rooms as sort of default rooms, like a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, and you get a bonus room.
Bonus room, yeah.
So that, it says
Right.
den/guest room, so that would be their bonus room on this one. Anything else would then be considered bedroom, regardless of what it's called on the plans, it would be a bedroom.
Right.
So if they had a study in addition to that, then that would be a bedroom regardless.
What's the date on that plan? Was it the one that I mentioned earlier? Because some of it seemed like we need some new plan, an updated
Is there
plan.
something more recent? This was received back in 2022.
Yeah, we don't have it.
Yeah, I don't think that's been updated, right, 2020, that's the one that doesn't have a company name on it? Is that it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's the latest.
So where are we at, Chairman?
I'm a yes.
I'm a no.
You're a no.
I'm a no for the dimensional variances. I think they're large. I think they
That's a no.
will create a problem potentially for neighbors.
Yeah.
Jane?
I mean, I said I was a yes. I don't know that there's a nexus to it. The thing that really, is bothersome is how much, can you go back to what you had before? You were just showing the 2 houses side by side, the current and the pyramid and the height, right? So, the pyramid line, it's pierced on both sides in both, but, there's something to be said for what's piercing it. And when you have these outdoor roof deck living spaces that are far outside the pyramid and very close to the neighboring lots, that's something that I do.
But it hasn't changed, although they're raising the FEMA requirement, the first floor elevation on the 2.
No, but the current house, obviously it's being raised, the new one, but the current house had a small elevated deck, kind of center on the house, and you can just see it there. It was further away from the lot lines. It's a different, this is this deck, there is just more intensity up there. And again, I don't know if we have the nexus to address it, but that's why I raised it, because that's the thing that to me changes the most, even though the setbacks themselves aren't really changing and the pyramid raise looks like it's coming from. So that's just, in terms of how it impacts the neighbors and peaceful enjoyment of their property and quality of life.
If
That's
we're
all.
granting the variance for the setbacks, which
But I'm,
does impact the pyramid. too.
So I think this
Going
is-
back
but
to the
I don't know
I
that
don't think we
they
could say
can.
that that
I think
short
this
of-
is, an unfortunate thing for the town of East Hampton is that
Yes.
there is no legislation for relief as relative to FEMA, and it's left up to us as a board, and it makes it a subjective viewpoint.
Mhm.
And whereas Southampton has a formula for these things,
Right.
we are left without that.
Right.
And so I struggle with it too. I'm not saying I don't struggle. I don't like having that decision because it does interject some
I
subjectivity.
mean, this is the the plan we have up there now is what made me crazy, because the current deck that's in disrepair is farther away, and the house on the west side there is only 2.6 feet from the neighbor's house today. It's going to be 4.1, but just that difference kept striking me. So. it's
I
why
mean,
I'm-
I guess I keep coming back to it's 1,200 square feet of GFA X the mechanicals on top, which is very comparable. The setbacks are comparable. Could we ask them to have reduced the size of the house from what was existing? I guess technically you're demolishing, you could, but I don't necessarily know that that's a reasonable request. And we didn't really bring it up at the hearing. We did talk about, could you design it differently or position it differently? So I think that's what, even with all the risks and how problematic this lot is in terms of flooding and standing water and all the things, I don't know that I can't say definitively it doesn't meet the standards. So that's why I'm
I'm just
approve
saying,
it.
my viewpoint is that I think the slight adjustment in the side of yard lines or whatever is diminished by the increase in environmental protection on this property. There is an increase in environmental
There
protection.
is an increase, that's true.
So that's my feeling.
do we have any other, so where are we, or what?
What was your final vote?
Waiting on your vote.
Oh, you're approving
I would
it,
approve
okay.
it,
So-
but denying the variances for that south deck and the hot tub.
Actually, the hot tub, yeah, well, up to now.
Well, it's all one. I mean, the deck and the hot tub, it's sort of one set of variances.
It's gonna be tough for you to write up.
Yeah, I'll try. I don't have the TAM in front of me, so were there any other conditions?
Conditions, yeah.
I can look it up.
Oh, well, Brian in his memo, let's talk about that then, since it's being approved. Brian in his memo, as far as some of the protocols that they submitted, had some recommendations. Said he has no objection to replacing the culvert, but would caution us to try, that the applicant try to maintain the existing flow rate. So there's that paragraph in his memo that he sent out,
But that's,
so that it doesn't go faster and it doesn't go
Yeah, but
slower,
Bennett
because that
designed
could
it, right?
exacerbate, what?
Drew Bennett designed it, right? It was designed in his new plan.
It's a design, but Brian has a concern about it, because he said if they don't have the right speed, if they slow it, they'll flood one side, and if they increase the speed, so I don't know how we manage that, but a condition, how we condition that.
I don't think you can legislate that.
No, but is there a condition of some sort of inspection and oversight as that work is going along? Is there anything that, we can really, because that comes first, or I guess sorry, not first, the, whatchamacallit, the septic comes first, but then the culvert happens before you get to the structures. So I'm new at this type of application, so I don't have the right words, right? I haven't had experience of shaping these types of conditions, but
I think my feeling is if a design professional designs it, it gets built to that. If it varies from that, it should be rejected. Right?
But I think it's out of our hands. We're not compliant, so we're not inspection either. So we can approve a protocol and then someone else.
Well, he also has a suggestion for us, and that
would
in the construction protocol, that we be provided no less than 3 business days prior to the commencement of construction.
incorporate
That, I
That's
think we could have as a modification to that protocol. And he also noted that on page 4 on the Bennett protocol, The survey, what's it? The dewatering receiving location is depicted on the survey. It does not appear that it's depicted on the survey or the current culvert replacement plan. So maybe that needs to be updated.
Here's the conditions.
Thank you.
Scenic
And the
easement.
parking area south of the leaching field on the culvert, was deleted from the application, and I guess it still shows on that.
Okay. So if I add those are from
And he
memo.
also says no shad in the revegetation.
So are there provisions, Brian talked about an application that had happened where things started to
Rowley.
rally, right, that unwind. So
It was poorly
what
managed.
happened? I mean, right, so you think it was not properly designed to
Yeah.
start
I think
with,
it ended
right?
up having a stop work order and they had to come back to us. It wasn't poorly managed.
If, forgive me, so if redoing the culvert were somehow to cause some sort of damage to neighboring properties or things like that, that's not something that we can,
If the drawing has been issued by an engineer and it's
That's all
properly
we can
installed,
say.
then
okay.
it is what it is.
And then
And
the
if
scenic
not, yeah,
easement,
there's a problem.
the scenic easement, I don't see it marked on the survey, so.
It would have to be
obviously-
on there.
Well, he mentioned it on the contour line. I don't know if Tyler wants to show us that.
No, just the easement is along the 12-foot contour line.
12
is
foot,
what we
so-
submitted to
Our
him.
contour line is down here.
But that would have to be on the survey for a permit, right?
To put the easement for a building permit?
On the survey.
Right,
Sorry,
yeah,
so-
generally that stuff gets done prior to a building permit.
I can't see.
So where does it go from
Yeah, I see
and
it, where's the
to?
12, I see the 12 foot,
Okay,
yeah,
12 foot.
12-foot line is essentially this right here.
right,
Make that bigger.
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Okay, I'm good now. Thanks.
Moving on. I'm missing my
was-
concert, for sure. We next have Todd Conti at 116 Sycamore Drive, East Hampton. Suffolk Tax Act number 300-39-9-36. Variances without, this is a variance without a hearing.
Tyler, you want to pull up that, just so the board can
Sure.
Yeah, so this,
get an illustration of,
this is a
yeah.
7-inch variance. 6 inches are
Yes.
typically.
This is actually,
We have a TAM.
yes,
We have a TAM.
yes, we
We have
do.
a TAM from
very short
Morgan.
TAM.
From
This is a
Morgan.
very short
Very
question.
short.
That one yeah, that's the one.
It'll be
Because I
easier
just
to see.
wanted the board to see that there's the patio, there's the sideline, the side yard, so you can get a view of what we're actually doing here. This is to allow a pool patio to remain 19.3 feet from the side yard lot line where 20 is required. So as Chairman Deline noted, a variance of 0.7 pursuant to 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code to allow the pool patio to remain 19.3 feet from the side yard lot line where 20 is required. And as noted in the TAM, this is going to be very quick. It appears that looking at the building permit plans and the as-built survey, the pool and patio were constructed according to the approved plans, and the patio was proposed 20 feet from the property line, but was ultimately shifted slightly east during construction, resulting in the need for the variance. There is a mature vegetation along the property that is affected by this. This is a very, very minimal, and this will have no impact, and I believe that the variance should be approved.
Ed?
Well, I have nothing to add, obviously. You've described it well, and I think it's a very minimalist request, and I'm willing to approve it.
Thank you.
I have no problem with it.
And I'm the same,
Okay,
I have no
same.
problem to approve it.
Okay, in other decisions, we have Tourmalet LLC, 250 Old Montauk Highway, Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-87-3. It's a modification to the 2022 determination, and I am recused from this application.
So you-
And I am dissenting.
So For some reason, my PDFs are taking forever to open, so it'll take a minute. But the modification is for a permit which was granted back in 2022. That original permit was to demolish the existing improvements and construct a 4,252 square foot two-story residence with approximately 2,312 square foot first and second story terraces, a gazebo, swimming pool, and sanitary system on a parcel of land containing coastal bluffs and beaches. The current modification consists of reconfiguring the floor area on the basement, the addition of a bedroom, bathroom, dumbwaiter, and the reconfiguration of a storage area on the first floor, and the reconfiguration of terraces, butler pantry, and barbecue area approved on the second story.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Sure.
I have something to go to. I'm going to excuse myself. My vice chair will finish up. Thank you, guys.
Enjoy.
Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The modification is going to result in a 7 square foot reduction in gross floor area, 333 square foot increase in building coverage, and an 885 square foot reduction in total coverage. The proposed modification does not change the extent of clearing approved on the application, and none of the setbacks really change. I can go through the floor plans if you'd like. This is the second floor. This is essentially what this is this was what was approved, and this is what they're now proposing. So they're proposing some changes to the barbecue area, some interior changes to the building, a new sun terrace where there was a fire pit and terrace previously, and changing of some terrace structures, and a gazebo, which adds to the coverage, which is why the building coverage went up slightly.
So can you just show where the 333 square foot increase in the building coverage is?
I think that's the gazebo area is a roofed area over a patio. I think that's why the coverage
Oh,
went up.
roofed over.
Yeah, it's not an increase in the building, I don't think at all. I think it's an increase in just roofed area, which increases building coverage
Right,
or coverage, as it would normally be called,
it's-
lot coverage.
And it's one, it says, obviously it says addition of a bedroom, but I didn't know if it meant there's an addition of a bedroom in the basement. So is it a net add of one more bedroom, and how many,
Yeah,
My own knowledge.
it's a net add of a single bedroom. This is the basement. It didn't really change much. They just sort of got rid of this home theater down here and made it a mechanical area and changed some storage around, and looks like some minor changes to made this a laundry area, and then the dumbwaiter, which goes up to the floor above it, probably for the laundry area. This is the main changes to the interior stuff is on the first floor. So they changed the bedroom around slightly. They actually, it looks like that's where probably the reduction comes from slightly, is they made this a pool equipment area and covered terrace, and then changed the bedroom around a little bit. They drastically changed what the home gym is. We used to be really big, and then changed some bedrooms things, added a bathroom, it looks like, as well.
Yeah.
And then they removed this terrace, which would be here, which is on the water side of the lot.
And they made design changes, has not changed significantly the scope of the project.
Correct, yeah.
should someone start?
How do we want to
Hey, well,
proceed?
so it went down in GFA? You said.
Yeah, let's see. A 7 square foot reduction in gross floor area. I wouldn't say it's significant, obviously,
No, not
but yeah, it did
Went down,
it technically go down.
And something else changed, the coverage?
The building coverage went up, or lot coverage really, went up 885 square feet. Total lot coverage went down. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Building coverage or lot coverage went up 333. Total lot coverage went down 885 through a reduction of terrace and like patio area.
Right, okay, and the terrace they removed is on the seaward side. so
Correct.
that's good
Yeah,
too.
that would be this structure
Okay,
here.
I think I'm okay with it.
This was a case that we spent a lot of time on because it's sensitive, it's on the ocean.
Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion over the placement of the house and how it was to be constructed. Building protocol took up a lot of our time. There's some sensitive neighbors. If this was going to in any way affect that neighbor to the northwest or the access road to another house that sits below it, it would be a big issue. But to me, there's not a significant change in the scope of the project. This is all basically minor changes to a architectural layout, so I'm
No,
fine
I
with it.
see it that way too, I'm fine
Yeah.
with it.
I mean, I think the reduction in the scope of the whole project, it may not be a big percentage, but a 885 square foot reduction in total coverage, I can appreciate. And then I like when applicants actually come for a modification before they do things, as opposed to, we do see sometimes people come after. So I take that into account. And so all in, I'm okay with this.
So for the record, council, Chairman Deline has recused himself. I am dissenting, and the rest of the board is in approval.
Thank you very much.
Member Berger, you want to move on to the minutes?
For the minutes?
Yeah.
Sure. So for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals, I'd like to make a motion to approve the draft minutes from May 14th, 2024.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
Now we're moving on to resolutions, and the first one is actually mine. Jeffrey and Melissa Slonim and Sarum, 13 Gallatin Lane, Springs, Suffolk County Tax Act number 300-38-1-12. This was a unanimous approval. It was to construct a second-story addition outside of the town's pyramid regulations, and we granted a variance of 1.4 pursuant to 255-11-72T of the East Hampton Town Code. I make a motion that we approve the determination as written.
I'll second.
I concur.
I concur. Okay.
Okay.
The second one
Mary?
is, yep. So this is Jeffrey Moskowitz, 75 Shore Road, Amagansett. Sorry, I don't have it in front of, this was a unanimous denial, right? Yeah,
Yes.
right, okay.
It was
Yeah.
4-0 to deny.
Right,
Yeah,
so it's a
Ed-
unanimous,
Member
right,
Johan wasn't here.
right. So it was a unanimous denial from the members that were here. The main issue, just to review, was concern that the scope of the increase in GFA would lead to, counter to the NRSP standard, increased degradation and of the dune land. So that was the crux of it. I read the resolution as written, and I would move to approve it. I should read in the whole thing. So in the matter of Jeffrey Moskowitz, 75 Shore Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-131-07-15, I've read the resolution as written and move for its adoption.
I'll second that.
I'll concur.
I concur.
Okay, next one's mine.
So I'm recused from this. Do I have to step out on this, or no? I can
No.
sit here. Okay. Just want to double
It's a
check.
done deal.
I know,
already, so,
just
yeah.
want to.
Berger, this next one, 29, this is yours.
29 Sanger, yeah. I don't know if that was an LLC, but 29 Sanger at 29 Sanger Place in Montauk, tax map 300-031-05-04. I think we all remember this. This was a redevelopment on a property, dimensional variances only required on it, and it resulted in a split decision 2-2. With myself and member Johan approving and members.
Denied.
Member Savarese, denying, it was denying.
Denied.
I'm sorry, we denied it. And.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I approve Sanger.
You approve.
Right, and
You and,
you, co-chair Savarese and chairman Deline approved the project.
Correct.
Now making a motion to approve the resolution as written for 29 Sanger Place in Montauk, tax map 300-031-05-04.
I'll second it.
And I concur.
And I'm recused. Right.
Next, we have 60 Squaw Road LLC, 60 Squaw Road Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-75-1-9. Approval was granted to legalize the completed removal of a pool and to allow 4 existing structures to remain. AC units, in-ground LPG tank, a generator, and also approved to reconstruct and in place in kind 1,525 square feet on a property containing tidal wetlands. The applicant's agent actually came back and asked for a fence relocation as a 4-foot wide pathway immediately to and along the western edge of the existing deck. Reasoning behind this was the owners would be unable to traverse from one side of the property to the other through the yard adjacent to the deck. I initially denied this part of the application, but I've actually given it a little bit more thought, and I'm now going to approve the entire application. Member Mering, did you deny the generator in the?
I denied
Jack?
the original, yeah,
And the
I
tank.
I denied the generator and I think it was AC units.
Okay,
Because I felt that it would have been easy to move them without the need for the
you
variances.
and I were initially the ones that
But
had to decide. Okay,
On the fence, though,
yeah, I've changed my vote, but you can.
oh, so you can change votes while the resolution
Well, I
is here?
spoke with council this morning,
Okay, all right.
so.
It's reflected in there, right?
So
Reflected in there,
so
yes.
you and I had both,
At
the
one
time-
point, we were denying it, and then I
Yes.
gave it a little bit more thought, and
got it.
I changed my mind.
And member Johan and everyone else was for the
Mhm.
fence. All right, well, I'm going to leave my denial
Yes.
as is
Yes.
right now rather than changing it.
So
So,
then I will make a motion that we approve the determination as written for 60 Squaw Road LLC in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-75-1-9.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur. Okay, Peter Santoro, 163 Atlantic Avenue. This was, we just had the post-hearing decision at our last meeting. And it was an NRSP application, no variances required. It was for a 240 square foot pool, the extension of decking that's attached to the house to hold that pool and to legalize under NRSP for air conditioner condensers. So I believe we were unanimous in approving those structures. However, in the course of our discussion regarding conditions, we all agreed that the clearing should be restored back to what was in, I think, 2008, 2010. So it was so I don't have the number, it's like 7,008, whatever that number was. We also looked at the standards in the prior NRSP that was issued administratively for the original redevelopment of the house in 2008. And I believe we all also agreed that some of the conditions of that NRSP had not been maintained, had been violated, and we were looking to bring the property in our new standards or our new conditions to that. So that meant revegetating, and it also meant replacing the lawn area, the mowed lawn area with native grasses. Council, I sent a couple question modifications just to some of the language. So I just wanted to confirm if you had that. It was just to make that, I don't have what I sent you, but maybe you can share them with the board. We're okay with that?
So I did have the opportunity to share the edits with the board because we had a few minutes before the meeting, before you got here.
Okay.
There was one regarding the access path on the, for the construction protocol to demonstrate the septic. That's in there.
Right,
Somewhere
because I think
already.
at the decision, we wanted to hear more about how that path would impact, or, some more in the protocol, right?
Yeah, so that's in the draft.
Okay.
That was circulated. Let me just pull it up so we can confirm it's what the board wanted. It's under paragraph I3D, the construction protocol by Elliot Fisher dated March 25th, 2024, et cetera, shall be updated to locate the project limiting fencing as well as the location of all components of the existing sanitary. Such updated construction protocol shall be submitted to the board for approval by the board or their delegate prior to the issuance of a building permit. So I think that that captured what the board discussed. The other two suggestions, the board, your other board members thought that it was fine as drafted, that it captures it. One being that in the finding sections, you said, I think we all made the point that the environmental conditions on the property were not in compliance with the conditions. I can add that they were fine with it as written.
Okay.
At least a majority, I think. Terry, I'm not sure if I heard you say yes or no before. We were having just like a casual, drafting discussion, not anything on the merits of the application, I'll say. And the same feeling on the other one, especially it's already built into the process, that if any areas are disturbed during construction, that they have to be revegetated. And that was one of your concerns.
Yeah.
I copied directly from the language in the admin NRSP from 2008, the language about the
No establishing lawn.
yes,
Right.
And then the one thing that, of course, he is not here now, but Roy said when the no mow native grasses, specifically that language, he said he wasn't sure if we discussed that at the hearing. And so I used the language in the conditions regarding the re-veg that was in the TAM. So I don't know if anybody has a particular.
I guess the only reason I wanted to be clear, like the condition, right? No I'm not saying it exactly, but no establishment of lawns up, right? But I just want to be clear because that could be construed as no incremental establishment. We, in our post-hearing decision, wanted to remediate, the lawn that's there and make sure it's non-mowed, native grasses. So I think that's all I was trying to get in.
I would be comfortable because I do agree that that is the discussion the board had. So when I picked that up in the in the prior determination, that we're assuming that somehow that was violated at some point, it was established thereafter. So I would be comfortable changing, the word establishment to make it clear that, no turf, lawn, sod, or ornamental vegetation, or turf, lawn, sod, or ornamental vegetation shall be prohibited on the premises.
So we can proceed and make a motion to approve as amended.
If you're
That's what
comfortable
I
with that,
wanted to
because I do think that that's how you guys came out on that.
Thank you for going through that.
No
All right,
problem.
so are we ready? Yeah? Okay, so So in the matter of Peter Santoro, 163 Atlantic Avenue, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-17211-17, I've read the determination and I make a motion to approve it with all the adjustments and conditions as amended. Period.
Second?
Concur. And this is 4 of us, right? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
remember Johan wasn't here.
right, but we were unanimous on that, yeah.
Okay, the next one, we'll move on to Lance Sutter, 57 Harper View Lane in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-57-4-10. This was a 3-2 denial, and the purpose of the application was to demolish an existing residence and construct 2,160 square foot, 2-story residence with 600 square feet of decking and a covered porch and a new sanitary system on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and coastal bluffs. A natural resource special permit was sought along with 5 variances. And if everybody's in agreement, I'd like to make a motion to approve the determination as written.
I'll second it.
Oh, I'll concur.
I'll concur. Only because I skimmed it, because of the time we got it, and
You
then
know,
I was out.
I read, it's very well written.
So
Yeah,
yeah, obviously, I would like to have read it more in depth, but I skimmed it and I concur with approving.
good.
Say concur, all right.
Ready to adjourn?
I think we are.
Is there anything else?
That's not on.
You ready to adjourn?
I am ready
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the zoning board meeting on May 21st, 2024 at 8:05
Second.
PM.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank